Cyclone Hamoon nearing landfall in Bangladesh. So it appears that this storm is slowly weakening after having a very rapid ascent earlier on in the morning. It's still a Category 1 with 90 mph winds at 21.1 degrees north, 91.3 degrees east. It had a very tight core and intensified quite rapidly and is now very close to reaching the coastline of Bangladesh with a pressure estimate of 979 millibars moving east-northeast at 15 miles per hour or 23 kilometers per hour. That's as of 6 p.m. Bangladesh time this October 24th. Still churning up and blowing up lots of convection as it gets close to land, but here it is right now displayed on the map with its wind field, a pretty equidistant, symmetric almost wind field there, extending up to 60 nautical miles towards the northeastern quadrant. So it's still packing some strong winds in there. It is just 83 kilometers from Cox's Bazar, 111 from Chakriya, 151 from Chattogram, 311 from Dhaka and 507 from Mandalay. It is going to continue to move inland towards the northeast and will end up tracking over northern Myanmar in the interior and then continue onwards as a remnant. It's not going to last very long before it deteriorates completely, of course, with landfall expected fairly soon within the next 6 hours. It is a fairly fast moving storm and is very close to land already. We are concerned primarily about storm surge, given that we're not sure how strong it will be at landfall, but we are expecting up to 4 feet of storm surge, 1.3 meters, in the Ganges River Delta region eastwards to Chattogram. Resulting dangerous flooding is expected to occur along with heavy rain which could occur in the area and strong winds of hurricane force possible from Cox's Bazar northwards to Chattogram particularly. Here's the forecast then over the next few days, and there's really not much of one. There it is, it's gone by tomorrow, dissipating well towards the northeast as it continues through northern Myanmar, and there's really nothing else to talk about during that period, just that it's moving towards land right now, getting very close, only 80 kilometers away as mentioned, and so we expect landfall will probably occur in about 4 or 5 hours if it keeps up that speed. 90 miles per hour is a fair estimate right now, supported by the JTWC and one of the satellite techniques. The Indian Meteorological Department is slightly lower at 80 miles per hour, and NOAA ADT lower still, and I don't think it's catching it properly. However, this storm did look really good earlier on in the day, much earlier on as a matter of fact, and I believe we operationally went with Category 3, and it's certainly on a weakening trend compared to back then. They're expecting the JTWC for a landfall at 70 knots, that's 80 miles per hour, and they're expecting that to occur in about 6 hours, and then moving inland northeastwards, turning a little bit further towards the north, and then quickly dying off. They expect by the 26th there that it will only have 30 mile per hour winds. Blink and you miss it. Did you see it? The storm making landfall and then moving inland very quickly, and then off it goes. We'll take a look at it again in a little bit more clarity in just a second when we get the start of this loop again. There it is, and you can see that slow motion there moving inland, near hurricane strength equivalent there as it makes that landfall next to Cox's Bazar, maybe slightly south of there, not far really from the border with Myanmar, and then continuing on in that direction. Looking at the reflectivity simulation, you can see in that brief period that it makes landfall, the northern side of the storm has the significant part of the rain, and that will obviously contribute possibly to some flash flooding, which could result in significant consequences. But as it moves inland, that rain really starts to fall away, and it becomes just general rainfall as it moves over those mountains and heads towards the east. Eventually some of its remnants will end up in China, but in the meantime we're only really concerned about Bangladesh and perhaps Myanmar for rainfall. And looking at the total rainfall accumulations, it's not crazy high, but there are a few locations where that rainfall could end up being certainly quite significant. And we're all around the Cox's Bazar area actually, where we could see maximums in that region of 7 inches. That's near 200 millimeters of rain. A fairly small area, Chattogram probably only getting 2 inches there, 50 millimeters. And significant amounts emanating around Cox's Bazar as it continues eastwards, predominantly northeastwards of there. We'll continue to get some high rainfalls up to 4 inches inland, and then down to 2, 1, and eventually only half an inch. Sea surface temperatures are looking good for this storm. Not that it really matters very much with only 6 hours before landfall, but sea surface temperatures are good, around about 29, maybe even pushing 30 degrees along the coast there. And the rest of the northern Bay of Bengal looking okay as well. If we do see any further storms, 28 degrees, probably a minimum marker there. So with all that borne in mind then, let's take a look at the latest satellite imagery and see how the storm has developed or possibly devolved in the last few hours. Well, there's the wide shot from the Himawari 9 satellite, not too far from the edge of its coverage, so it's very slanted, but you can see its gradual movement towards the northeast. And as we look at this imagery, you can see that it is still blowing up large amounts of convection. I think the eye wall structure has struggled, although it was looking really good in a tight core yesterday. That must have fallen apart. I didn't see it myself, but you can see all of this imagery on the Force 13 website, force13.com/satellite. It is trying again, blowing up big amounts of convection there. That's not an eye though in the middle, I don't think, because the eye should be a little bit further eastwards there, and that's just a trick of the convection. But really high cloud tops, that's for certain, and this is definitely a hurricane strength storm with all of that rotation occurring underneath, and this could be a significant storm surge and definitely a rainfall impact for this part of Bangladesh.